Last Tuesday night at the board meeting, I always do a little presentation on the director's report, and at the end of the report, I said I have an additional statement I need to make. And I said this is pretty much based on a lot of the calls and the visits and the questions from the board as my intentions with an extension on my contract. Of course, the contract runs out June 30th, and now, you don't take these decisions lightly. You take them prayerfully, and you look at where you're at and the course that the school's on or the system is on, whether it's been one of progress, if it's stalemated. You look at all of it and what your role in that would be. And so we, for the last year and a half, I've been here a year and a half now. I kind of likened it to maybe a ship and set out in rough waters at times, because there's a lot of things that had happened, and the school system and the community at large was having some real issues to deal with, and we don't need to go back and revisit those. Everyone knows all of those. And so I felt like my major role was to try to bring some stability, try to build the morale back, try to steady the ship, in other words, and put everything back on a course for success. Foundational building is more important than anything that anyone can do. And my legacy, I hope, and I may fail miserably, but I hope it is one where it's looked at as being a foundational time. Of course, my intentions never have been to make this a long-term something. This is my 41st year, So I've spent a lifetime in administration and education, and this is the 38th year in administration, and love children. I love the work of education. But during this time, we've seen the largest number of changes from not just a state and local level, but from a federal level. So I was on equal ground with everyone else as far as the educators in the county. We're all having to go through the changes, through the new trainings with the Race to the Top initiative, and Tennessee being one of the 46 states that were involved in that. We have seen so many of our teachers that have come from struggling and worrying about trying to meet these new demands and goals to where that they're now ready to, and they are doing a good job in preparing their classrooms according to some of the new standards and benchmarks and what have you. That's on the academic side of it. It's a new day. And so there's new levels of evaluations, new levels of planning for teachers, new levels of the way you grade students. Everything's changed. So, and part of that component is the evaluation component of educators. And of course, those were tied to Tennessee laws, and with the emphasis in the state legislature on education, with over 700 new laws, I've been told, that have been implemented in the last year. A lot of things have taken place. We're all learning as we go. But to get back to what we were talking about, the change and my role personally, I feel is foundational leader. I don't particularly care who gets the pat on the back. If I can help people and get established in their leadership roles and their role as an educator, and empower them to do their jobs, then I don't need any glory, because they're the ones that's on the battle line. They're the ones that's facing the children. But sometimes in order to do that, you've got to get all this wham, bam, all this stuff out here where people want to get in the limelight. You have to kind of steady things, work behind the scenes, and do it in somewhat passive way for some people. And that's what we needed as much as anything, is just settle the course, settle the storm. And in order to take a ship through rough waters, you got to make sure you calm the passengers in there too, because if you don't, they're going to jump off. They're going to jump aboard. And I feel like our teachers have jumped into the team, and they're working with us on this. They're facing as many frustrations as anyone, or more so, because of these new demands. But I think they face the challenges. I think that they're working to implement all of the new standards and laws that have been sent to us. Feel real good about that part. But when you look also at the entire school day of a child, it's changed. And that I felt so strongly that we need to put some attention, multifaceted approach, if you would, on what the children do from the time they're left from mom's and dad's care until the time they're put in their care. Like, for instance, our bus transportation, is it what it should be? Is it as safe as it needs to be? Are there ways that we can change it to better meet the needs of the kids? So we're looking at, we've made several changes. We've got cameras going on all buses, able to fund that, and so those things are being be put in the next few days. We've done the bid process and already given that to a company to help us install those. We're going to be looking at how to maybe get those routes better serve the children. That's just one thing. Now the lunch program, that's, Miss Vicki has done an outstanding job with all the things that come down from the federal government. When I was growing up, the big issue was, we've got to feed these children because they're malnourished. Now the big issue is that they're too nourished. We've got to make them healthy foods and instill some new ways of eating. And so there's not very many people from preschool all the way through 12th grade appreciate a lot of the new changes that are in that's on the plate now. But it's all about healthy eating, healthy foods, and that's coming to us from the federal government in portion size, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll be honest with you, some of these things that children do not like, I'm right there with them. But now I understand what needs to be done as far as and what they're trying to emphasize on a federal level. But I always said a little seasoning helps food taste a lot better. And so when you're limited on some of that, but we're dealing with that, and of course, your buses, your transportation safety. You have to stay abreast of all safety issues, and that is something that we have tried so hard to keep our principals in training, to keep and we have a safety director, Mr. Bruce, that has he and Mr. Nidifer and others are going to training all the time to stay abreast of all of the different things that are needed to keep our kids safe. You never know what's going to happen. When we come in the morning, like it is today, sun is shining and a beautiful day, one little call can absolutely change your course of what you're going to be doing for days or months or even years. And so we have to try to stay conscious of all of those types of things. And it's not unique to Campbell County. That's everywhere. Just a different world since 9/11 and the incidents that happened here in Campbell County. And I guess that some people think that we may overdo that somehow. You can't overdo the safety note. You've got to stay on where. We had a county-wide safety drill, and the Sheriff's Department, all the different departments worked so closely together. At Elk Valley, you all were involved with that probably. And we saw what can happen when all the people come together to try to improve safety in our community. And I think we've seen a real good cooperation between all the different organizations and different groups to take care of our children. And God forbid that anything would happen that was played out that day, but it could. It could very well happen. Whether every step would be implemented in a real situation, only God knows. You want to get your people ready, and in case it does happen. That's another issue. And of course, the core curriculum and all of those things that are taking place, plus all of the emphasis on safety, plus all of the evaluation, can you imagine all of the pressures that our principals under. And so we have assistant principals in all of our schools except the very smallest, and they stay busy all the time, and they're trained to help with the evaluations. They're trained to help with some of the same concepts as the main principal of the building. We try to keep those in place, but you see, you're not funded like you need to be funded to keep those things in place, but yet they're wanting all of these, the state and federal government want all these things done, and the community basically demands these things and deserve those things. So we have those in place, and of course we've had to cut so many positions because of the financial condition of the county. Of course, Campbell County has seen a steady decline in student membership for several years. We just got our report card. It's online for anyone to see. And when you get into the report card, it deals with different facets of a school day, school life for students, our teachers, our curriculum, our safety, everything's looked at. And we stay way down there in that bottom tier, have for years. It's been it's a cultural standard thing about this area. It's the rural issues that often influence what goes on in education. But see, if we allow those things to bother us, they become excuses. What we've got to do, and what we're trying to do, not trying to reinvent the wheel, but set a foundational course where there's steady improvement. But at the same time we're trying to improve, guess what? Everybody else is. And so it's not that we're going to be in the top 3% in the nation. That's probably not going to happen. But if we can see some steady growth as far as our improvements in academics, our improvements in the quality of educational delivery system, where we're teaching what needs to be taught, et cetera, then I think that we're serving the kids in the right way. I mean, all of our children, there's one thing that none of us have control over, and that's the abilities, the God-given abilities that every one of us have. But we can influence how we use those abilities, and how that these children develop academically, socially, emotionally, and lots of other ways. But when you look at the grade card, and we're going to be doing, by the way, we're going to be doing a workshop on the 27th, I believe it's a Tuesday. It's the last Tuesday in this month at 5:30. We're going to be doing a workshop with our board members and media. We'd love to have you guys there, with our principals, assistant principals, and our principals academy. And I'll talk about that in a second. But we're going to try to disaggregate a lot of the information that is in that report card and see what some of our plans of actions are to improve on them, to hold steady of the things that we're doing good. Because when you look at it, there's so many areas that we can do much better in. The approach the approach that we use to make those improvements is just as important as anything. We've got to be careful of, if we keep changing leadership and teachers at each one of these sites, then you don't have that steady course that needs to be in place. And so we've got to be careful there. We've got to look at everything and put everything on the table. I know I was looking at some of our ACT scores. For the last 3 years, all the children and juniors and seniors were tested. Prior to those 3 years, not so. And so there was a change, I mean, everywhere in the state of Tennessee. There was a change in the last 3 years' numbers as opposed to the previous years. We're going back in the archives and looking at information for 6 full years and seeing the trends. And so far, what I've seen is you can change the calendars, you can change the faces in some of those areas, but there's some things that have stayed within just the range, and there's no major upward or downward movement with some of those scores. I'd like to see a better effort in improving the scores as such. We've seen some improvement, especially like at Jellicoe in the ACT scores last year, but still yet we're still way down that bottom tier when you compare with a lot of the other systems. Now on December the 11th, that evening I'm going to be meeting with President of LMU and some others. We're going to be looking at a program that's going to be offered, as I understand it, free of charge for this area to help improve the ACT scores. And I have no clue what it's about at this point, but like I told them early on, I'll go anywhere it takes it if it'll make a change in a positive way to help our kids. Of course, on some of the other issues that are listed in there, we're within the margin pretty much of where it's been for some time. There's been some upward changes in some of the achievement. We have 4 schools that are called focus schools. We didn't have any schools on what we as directors sometimes call the blacklist, so that were in trouble. So we made our achievement gains. Focus schools, those were schools for us. There's different areas to be identified. Ours were we had achievement gaps between the students of the low socioeconomic as opposed to those that were not, that have to be closed. then we also had an achievement gap with the special needs kids and those that were not. So we're working to have, well, we have a lot of things in place at each school to try to close those gaps. So the challenge is on. So you bring in interventionists and, you know, some of our Race to the Top monies and some of the programs that are available there to make those changes. And also with, oh, by the way, Carrollville Elementary just almost became what they call a high priority school, which would have been one of the top 5% of the schools in the entire state, just very, very close. And it was the achievement gap that kept them from it. So it won't surprise me to see some of our schools, like Jacksboro Middle School, you know, just about 3 or 4 years ago, they were in the top 10 middle schools in the state of Tennessee. We want them all to be in that top tier. Everyone does, as far as that goes. Face reality, make no excuses, make plans to try to make improvements where they're needed. Leave everything for open inspection and try to make those changes as needed. There was 3 things that I've shared with people over the years. There's 3 basic areas that I've really dedicated my life to. It may not mean anything to anyone else, but I've tried to stay with it. And it's 3 areas: education, of course, Christian service, and the health and safety of children. And I know there are so many other things you get involved in, but those 3 are so dear to my heart. We've got to have people that are advocates of children, or they need to go get in another business. And I have no apologies to make about that. If education, teaching, whatever is just a job, I would encourage them to go somewhere else. And I know jobs are hard to find, but and you know, sometimes when you try to stay positive, you know, you get those that on the other, you know, why should I spend 90% of my time working on the 10% negative? You see what I'm saying? And they're out there. They're always going to be there with us. And they're going to come to us in different forms and fashion. Every organization, it doesn't matter what it is, you've got your naysayers, you've got those that they'll say it'll never work and woe is me and all of this. You just have to, as the old saying goes, let that be like water off a duck's back. And out of those 10%, sometimes they can actually be a motivator. Sometimes those real negative 10% can actually say things that are so factual and so true, and uncover a lot of things that need to be looked at that'll keep the others really at it. And I have no problem with that. I think we need that balance. I just, you know, yesterday we had another training session with our principals and our new principals and some of the new teachers with us, flipping training that so many of you have heard about. And it has made such a dramatic change in the classroom and the culture in the classroom as far as how we reach the children's heads and what have you. And those that have bought into it, it's served its purpose. For those that haven't, it's just like whatever you're involved in, if you don't put your entire self into it, it'll never amount to anything for you. But those that have bought into the program have really seen dramatic changes in their approach to kids and results. Well, the results speak for themselves, you know. We have seen such an improvement in discipline across the board, and facts are facts. And speaking of facts, that's one big issue that all of us in the education directors and principals have to do. You almost have to have a full-time data person now to disaggregate all the information that comes to us. In fact, we're encouraged to do that. We've applied for a $10 million grant. So many systems wouldn't even attempt to apply for it because there's only going to be 25 that's going to be given out of 46 states. We put our entire heart and being into it. We have it, had it ready and sent it. It was actually going to be hand delivered to Washington, but that was when Sandy came through. So, that grant was prepared, and our attitude is, well, we could be one of those 25. And so we work with our team. People work so hard in preparing that grant. Just got a $1 million grant, a 6-year grant for the Gear Up program, and that's going to help like 7th graders on up. We'll be following them and helping them with college career awareness and readiness. And so we'll have one person that'll head that up, and that'll be working with all 7th graders in the county, and also high schools, both high schools, Campbell County High and Jellicoe High. Larry Nideford, that's the secondary supervisor, he worked in that program a few years ago, and it's one of the finest programs that they've set out and refunded, and I hope it stays that way. And that work will be very beneficial for our kids. A lot of the things that I felt like with a contract extension, I just asked for 1 year. Continue the course we're on with all these things that I've mentioned, but also work on some of the areas that we just felt like we've not been able to make a difference. You know, we've had to work within that framework of lack of funds and the economy as it is. There's so many programs that it makes me sick that I want to see started in the county. Fine arts, we've done nothing, in my opinion, to really promote and to build the fine arts program in Campbell County. We have talented kids here, teachers here. There's no reason for us not to work on those areas. And I'm hoping, and I know it's not going to fall out of the sky, but I'm hoping we can connect, whether it be through a grant or an organization or someone will step up and say, I'll be glad to sponsor an additional music program, additional art program, and we'll partner with anyone to try to get these things in our school. So many of these kids can blossom in those areas where they can't make it in other areas. And I want to see that happen. Of course, you want to see growth in all the other academic areas, but that's just as an example. And then one of the things that I personally have had a real problem that I want to change is being more visible in the schools. It's this is no excuse. You can become a prisoner of the work if you let it. And what I mean by that, you feel like you gotta be here and do this and hang in there all the time and spend a lot of hours at night. And well, my work's my hobby. I don't care to tell you, but do what you can while you're there, and then do that foundational stuff, and then move over here and then let somebody else build on that foundation, but make yourself available if they want to use you again, as just as a friend, as a consultant, or whatever. I lean on a lot of people, but the ones I lean on the most are these that are out there in this classroom, these teachers, because they're the ones that know what these children need, what's going on. And my happiest, and everyone that's around me, I tell you this, are the days that I'm in the schools with the kids. I don't care to tell you, that's when I'm my happiest. And I enjoy going in. It doesn't matter if it's going in just reading books or just sitting down and chatting with them, having lunch with them, or whatever. That's my happiest moments. And like I say, I feel like I failed miserably in the last year and a half, not making myself as visible as I need to in these schools. And that will change if I'm here much longer, But if they'll allow me another 12 months to June 2014, I will gladly do my best to serve these kids. Make mistakes, absolutely. But I'll give it all. I'll give it my all if they allow me to stay, and I'm willing to. I've wrestled with that. I'll just be honest with you. I've wrestled with that, and a lot for as much for personal reasons as anything. I just don't want to burn out. And I know the calendars are moving. I know there's things that goes on in our old bodies, but then that becomes an excuse. And so, as these brain cells burn out, and they're going to burn out, then maybe good Lord will leave me a few in there to where I can, hit on like a car that's got one or two pistons that's working. Maybe I'll keep one or two of those pistons working where I can do what I need to do to serve the kids. And whether I stay another month, another 3 or 4 months, a year, this has been a journey. It's been a blessed journey. And the board have a serious obligation to the people of this community when they make the decision whether to extend, whether to cut it off. And I have no problem with whatever their decision is. I'll serve if I'm allowed to serve. And we can go back and talk about look at all the changes in a year and a half. That wasn't about Donnie. That's about teamwork. Together, everyone achieves more, TEAM. And I feel like that we've had a very proactive board. In a lot of ways, look, what we've done with this building here, we moved in here and it's paid for. A lot of the facilities we've got this new environmental change in our schools for lighting and what have you. That's been a major initiative. So many things like that, like I said, multifaceted approach. And keeping your teams at each site being what they need to be. We've got improvements to make at every site. And that's part of it, you never know, like I say, you never know what the problems will be tomorrow, but you wait till tomorrow comes. We close all of our staff meetings out. In fact, our in-service meetings was something I learned a long time ago. I took a Dale Carnegie course. I was working as a student recruiter for LMU. So they sent me to Dale Carnegie training. And I used this even when I taught school, Pinecrest, back in 72 up to 75. I loved that little school. Every morning, I would teach my kids the saying, today's the best day of my life, and tomorrow will be even better. And so we use that as we launch each staff meeting. We use that if we have principals meetings a lot of times, countywide. And when you hear it the first time, you think, well, that's one of those positive guys, Hey, listen, I don't have to apologize for that one, because that's something I believe. And the only way you can make tomorrow better is be determined to make it better. And so what do you do with that? You provide yourself. That's availability. It's not about your ability sometimes. It's about your availability. And Lord have mercy, Lord, I'm not the brightest color in the box or the smartest IQ person in the corner. It's just being able to be part of a team that cares about what we're supposed to be caring about. And when my day's gone, I don't want to talk about it. I hope and pray that the next person that's in this position will love the kids, build on the foundations, and move it on. I would love to champion anyone that'll do what they can promote a child's education or their dreams. Career awareness, readiness, career readiness, all of those things have got to be some of our little cries that we've got out there. And how do we do that? We stay focused on the child. Jim, I'm sorry, I could rattle all day long, but I honest to goodness, I would one more year, and hey, listen, who knows? Who knows? That's fine. I don't worry about tomorrow. I know who holds tomorrow, and don't worry about it. Just make myself available today.